What it do, Fostering the People crew? I'm your host, Alana Collins, and this is another episode of Fostering the People podcast, a podcast that encourages you to go after the goals that you want to accomplish and really foster growth within yourself, regardless of the foundation you started with. And today we have a very, very special episode because we have a guest joining us today. This person is a social worker who also has her doctorate and is licensed in the state of Maryland. She is the CEO and founder of Foster Care Connect Foundation Incorporated, and she is a foster care alumna herself. Please welcome Dr. Krista Martinez.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Can you just start by giving listeners an introduction and background about yourself?
Yes, thanks for having me. Again, I'm Dr. Krista Martinez. I am from Kansas, so small town girl, but I've been living in the DMV area for about 11 years. I've been a licensed social worker for 14 years and have worked in child welfare, family therapy, and case management, different things as well. Currently, I work at a school doing school therapy as well as in nonprofit work. So a little bit about me. I'm really passionate about the field and really making a big impact in our community.
So what really drew you to social work?
I think it started when I was really young. I think I had different experience of being in the system and just feeling that I didn't have a voice and not being able to advocate for myself as much as I wish I would have. And so growing up and then going to school, I was like, I want to make this world a better place. What can I do and how can I have the most impact? And social work was that field that I felt like I could do that and have direct on the ground, boots on the ground experience. And navigating my social work program is like, well, how can I be the best social worker? And what do I need to learn? So in any circumstances, I can help whoever I connect with.
So I mentioned in the introduction that you are a doctor in social work, and you specifically did your dissertation in studying foster care alumni who also pursued masters in social work. What inspired you to further research about that particular topic?
Yeah, so a couple reasons. I think even in my own experience, right, of navigating my MSW program, it was really hard to find different resources, a community, and just my own personal struggles. And so as I was navigating my dissertation, I'm like, I want to highlight how we can find resources for our community and what that looks like, because I know that although I'm a foster care alumni and I had all these problems, I wasn't the only one. And on the other side of that, a lot of the research that I've read, right, was very negative about foster care alumni, the statistics, and all the limitations that would make one feel not successful. And I know that there's tons of foster care alumni who are thriving and overcoming. I wanted to highlight that in a positive way, in a strict way, to show others that there are needs and advocating for resources instead of taking them away. And how can we build that? Well, let's find the research to back that up. And that's why a little bit of how I did that.
So you mentioned something like really important. There are resources available. 3 to 10% of foster youth get a 4-year college degree, and there's even less of us who actually get our master's degree. And so I find that very alarming. I know in your research, you specifically talked about like there being certain barriers that master students face. What is the biggest barrier, and did you yourself experience that while you were getting your doctorate degree?
Yeah, so the two biggest barriers were finances. Trying to finance your MSW program, and where they may have had a voucher in undergrad, once you completed that or once you turn a certain age, you couldn't get it.
Girl.
And so, right. And so, but one of my participants, they said something really profound that sticks with me to this day. And it was like, well, the state federal knows that I don't have parents and I'm having these struggles. What changes between 22 and 24?
Nothing at all. Actually, no, you know what changes? We got more bills and more responsibilities.
Right.
That's it.
Right. But then under that, right, depending on what support you had coming up in the system or even after, you may not also have the foundation to thrive in your young adulthood, right? And then you take foster care out of it, right? the average young adult, probably, maybe after college or something, they go back to a parent or they go stay with somebody to help them get their feet together because they know they're not fully an adult yet, right?
And they know they still need help. They still need guidance.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a foster care alum, you don't have that same opportunity. And so the second thing that is a big barrier is limited family support, right? So you feel isolated, you feel alone. And so trying to navigate, I want to be successful, but I also got to pay rent, but I also have these real life things that I need. And I don't have a lot of funding and resources to do both.
Yeah, you really touched on something. You mentioned not having the foundation, and that's really what fostering the people is about. It's about empowering whoever is listening to really foster growth within themselves, regardless of the foundation they started with. And that started because of my own experience in the foster care system. I think that's like beautiful about foster youth because they are so very resilient. And that's actually one of the things that you also mentioned within your research, just having resilience and the just strength to really figure it out. But back to the second one, how would you encourage foster youth to find a way to bridge that gap, even if they don't have that?
So if they don't have the funding or limited family support?
Limited family. So
yeah, because I could go both ways. No, I think even from my own experiences, right? When you may not have that biological family support, you learn to find your other family, right? Your own community, your chosen family, as they say. And that kind of helps you build that resiliency and find your own support. So you may have close friends that become sisters, right? Or different mentors that become family along the way. And those people can be the ones that kind of help you get through your program. But you also have to be open to build those connections too. I think that's the other part that I think being foster care alumni, also kind of research talked about being the invisible population because you don't know who's the foster care alumni versus not. And that's another story of how to get those resources. But in allowing yourself to be vulnerable, right? To build those relationships.
Oh my gosh. My entire undergraduate experience, I was very much a person who just kind of gravitated towards the people that chose me and not realizing that networking and building relationships is pretty much the foundation. If you ever want to do more, you really have to have a good relationships with people and they don't have to be family. And so that I struggled with that significantly, but I'm honestly grateful. I mentioned this in previous episodes, but like I had somebody who helped me when I was in grad school and he connected me with other mentors who have been just life-changing.
Speaking of resiliency, right? So in my research, I focus on, so that helped me navigate the questions that I asked participants. The theories I used was strength-based perspective and resilience, because again, I wanted to highlight the positive attributes that foster care alumni have. And so the number one thing that helps a person be resilient is having at least one supportive connection. So like you said, that one person that was in your life kind of was the domino effect to other connections and other support. So if you have that one, that will go a long way for somebody.
But foster care specifically, I don't feel like it teaches you to trust that much at all.
Well, because your trauma, right?
Yeah.
So the trust that you may have had growing up got lost because of just different experiences, right? So it's really hard to be vulnerable, right? And so I think that is the piece is if you find that one person that you can identify that you trust, lean on that person. And that may be the thing that helps you.
So yeah, I think mentorship is definitely extremely important and pretty much impossible to like not have if you do want to navigate fostering growth within yourself. But so now let's transition a little bit because the first thing you mentioned was financial. I don't know if a lot of our listeners are familiar with the Education and Training Voucher program, but what other financial resources do you think would be beneficial for?
Yeah. And I think within that, right, and there's even limitations to that, depending on when you aged out or if you got adopted and at what age you get adopted. There's so many things that can get in the way from getting that. So it's really looking into see just what other scholarships that could be available for you. There are growing foster care alumni networks that may provide scholarships and things like that. So unfortunately, it's still a growing thing. What I would like is with those vouchers that people do have access to is to extend the age, right? I think it's, like I said, it's around 24. It would be nice if it could be 30 because I think some people start later in life with their education. And because of that, they may not get that opportunity to use that said voucher. But if there was some wiggle room for age, they may have the access.
So it's interesting that you mentioned wanting the age to be extended because Senate Bill 4314 that combines two House bills that recently passed that would not only extend the ETV age, but would also extend the qualifications. So instead of just being able to use it for undergrad, it would allow people to use it for like GED studies
and trades and things like that.
And things of that nature. And so when I saw this, I'm just like, man, I would have loved to use it for grad school, at least for like my first year or something like that. Do you think that that is enough, or do you think that there needs to be more included in the bill?
I think that's great, and that's a creative way to get, because they know some people may not go to college, and that's okay, right? Yeah. And so figuring out ways to support them because they want them to thrive and have good jobs and be successful, good citizens, and things like that. But I'm curious of what age they give you in that, and to be able to do that.
So they extended it for 1 year and increased the programs that it goes under. And I think it also includes transportation costs as well.
Yeah, I think that the conversation should continue to get more feedback from alumni within that 20 to 30 of what their needs are. But from what I found, it could be helpful. Then again, that extension beyond that, and even maybe take an age perimeter off, right? I mean, education is education, right?
Honestly, you don't stop being a foster youth after 25. Like,
yeah. And then you think about it, when you age out, doesn't mean you're healed from the system, right? Yeah. Sometimes you get the help and services later in life, right? Mm-hmm. Where, again, you're talking about alumni who face homelessness, couch surfing, just instability in their life, and then trying to navigate, well, what am I going to do? What's my purpose in life? What kind of job I'm going to have? What kind of career? Those are a lot of things for one person to handle. And if they don't have at least one person to talk to help them to navigate these things, right? Yeah. And so there's room just to continue that conversation for support.
Yeah. And one thing also, like there is CHAFE funding and ETV funding that is returned by some states on an annual basis because they just can't find enough qualified youth that actually meet the qualifications to receive this funding. And I think one of the ways to ensure that that doesn't happen is to extend the age as well, because I thought I was ready, but I did not start getting ETV benefits until my second semester of my sophomore year. And I was so mad to realize I could have done it a lot sooner. And I wasn't told, even though I thought I was prepared.
Even for me, I think while I was trying to find scholarships for me in college, and I was a trio student, and so I had some of that. But it wasn't until like my junior year that I found a foster care scholarship that kind of helped me a little bit with undergrad and grad. But it's just me doing my research and just finding it and got lucky, right?
But when you have surviving, taking care of yourself, school, and maybe working and all that stuff, doing the research and also applying for that scholarship, is you got to really want it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So based on what I've like always just thought I knew about the foster care system, I always thought that there was a shortage of case managers, and there was just so many more foster youth than there were case managers. Specifically in your dissertation, you mentioned that case managers can do a better job at sharing knowledge and resources to youth as they age out of the system to prepare them better. What do you think? What is the bare minimum that social workers can do? Case managers can do.
Yeah, I don't think there's a shortage in case manager social work. I think it's a growing field, in general. However, in the way that they may disseminate resources to youth, right, may be limited in how they get to know what's available to them. Right. So I think it's just staying up to date on, like I said, the vouchers or the resources, and also encouraging youth of how to nurture to be successful. Because typically, if the foster youth, they're focusing on court or different things, their own therapy, things like that. But sometimes what gets lost in translation is that they can do it, that they could be successful, or someone encouraging them or exposing them to as simple as a college tour, right? So exposure is key as well, and focusing on how to support them in education. But at the same time, I want to be transparent because I do work in the field. It is also going to be important for foster care alumni to do their part and be open to the resources. So the hand is there, you got to be open to take it too.
So I will say, I personally didn't have any case managers that would have taken me on the college tour, like at all, actually. But I did have a counselor in high school. And so even though I had a great case management team, but I still didn't really have the tools or resources to navigate how to transition into college at all.
Right.
But I leveraged my high school counselor and signed up for college tours. I actually started going to college tours as a sophomore in high school.
Nice.
So high school counselors are definitely really important. But I think one of the issues though is, yes, there may be a lot of caseworkers. The numbers may not be as bad as I assumed, but I think the issue is that because there's a high turnover, the information gets lost. And I think something that would benefit the foster care system as a whole, as a nation, is if there was just a better shared repository of the information.
Yeah, I mean, that would be helpful, right? And I think that's a thing to call out, and hopefully someone hears this and can figure out how to work together to make that happen.
Yes.
Because things do get lost in translation, right? As things go, and who does that hurt? Who does that affect?
Yeah.
That foster youth who's trying to navigate life, right? And so how can we best support them in the best way to ensure that they could be successful, right? Because there is already till 21, right? And figure out how do we get them ready to be that thriving adult.
So we talked about just some of the barriers, but one of the other barriers that you mentioned in your dissertation is the issues with mental health. And based on the research that you did, what challenges do you think that most people face, and how do you think they overcome them?
Yeah, the mental health was a barrier. And some of the mental health challenges that were faced were PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and the biggest one was imposter syndrome. And that's a big one. And sometimes you could have co-occurring. You could be trying to manage imposter syndrome while also managing depression and anxiety. And that's hard. That's hard. And in the MSW program specifically, I think it's also something to consider is some of the triggers that they face. So, because you're in a social work program, they are talking about the child welfare system. So sometimes you could be reminded of your own experiences, right? And being alone in the room, right? Because no one knows that you may have had these experiences because you just want to go to class. So, I think it's recognizing that. I think, and you're questioning me, like, how do they navigate that, right? So it's important that seek therapy, having, again, that your own support, your chosen support. So your chosen family and what that looks like. And maybe communicating with with your professors when you have these challenges. And also, I think it's important for professors to know maybe how they talk about the population when they don't know that they may have a foster care alumni in the room.
Yeah, I think you mentioned two really important things. The first thing you mentioned is triggers. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but I actually started working in the nonprofit sector with at-risk youth. I realized that I just was not something that I could do long term.
Even for myself going through my program, I was like, okay, well, I'm recognizing some of these things within myself. I need to go get help for me too, because I, like you just said, you had those experiences, you had those triggers. I can't pour into anyone's cup if I'm not taking care of me. Yeah.
Cause, right.
I have to find a way to take care of you and build you, especially in the field of social worker, because it's not an easy field.
My mentor, there was one time she was just like, Alana, you gotta leave that bag of rocks at the door. You cannot take it in with you. You can't carry it everywhere. You gotta leave it at the door, because if you don't, like, it will, you won't be able to survive essentially in that field. What do you think?
It sounds like that metaphor worked for you and to help you navigate getting through, right? Because you can't forget your past. Your past is your past, right? But I think to continue to keep in mind how to be successful, like saying, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to overcome this. This is a temporary, these things that is going to help you see the future. I think even again, I'm going into one of our participants, they said something else that also stood out to me. You're going to be out of the foster care system longer than you're in.
Yes.
And so knowing that there is room for you to grow and be the person that you absolutely want to be. But you have to believe that in yourself. And I think, again, that's overcoming that mindset of like that imposter syndrome that we talked about. And even for myself, I had imposter syndrome.
I still got it, girl.
But it's knowing that, no, I'm going to be successful regardless. And that's what's going to help you get through that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that just overall, like, we've been resilient in so many ways. This is the same thing. We just got to keep pushing forward, even if they're
that bounce back.
Truly. So that's triggers. And then let's transition. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about that you brought up was leaning in on your professors for support. And so I have an interesting question for you.
Okay.
So when I was in undergrad, I had an interesting experience in undergrad. I didn't realize just how much support and resources a university had until I went to grad school. If someone is listening who didn't necessarily have a good undergraduate experience or really have professors that they could feel close to, what are your suggestions and how can they still find people at the school that can be supportive for them?
Yeah. Man, I would say I even have that experience, and maybe not in that exact way, but I didn't have the best undergrad GPA. Like, I was all right, but I wasn't 4.0.
Yeah.
So, even to that point, you'll find the program. If it's something you really want, having that innate drive for yourself, then not to let nobody stop you.
Yeah.
And so, and even going back to my experience, I think my GPA, the program, the school that I went to, I didn't initially get in per se. But I like reach out to them like, hey, like what happened or what can I do next time? Or, to learn to get into my study program, because I knew as a social worker, if I wanted to do anything, I needed that master's.
Yeah.
And, but through that and advocating, they ended up starting like a weekend format, and I was able to go, got my degree. And then, but that also opened the door for other people who maybe working full time, have kids or other things, right? That maybe would prevent them from going to grad school just because the schedule, right, was really hard. So again, not letting them stop you.
Yes, I completely agree. I myself considered different master programs. The door got shut on one quickly. The second one, I got accepted, but they weren't offering me any type of assistance or anything. And then the third one, did not think for the life of me I would get in, but then I did. And I told myself I couldn't do it for X, Y, and Z reason. Then I realized those reasons were just my own like self-doubt and fear in my mind. Yeah. And I didn't let that stop me.
Yeah, but the thing you said, you kept looking.
Yeah.
You didn't just stop at one, and you found the program that was right for you.
Yeah.
And that matters.
What advice would you give to somebody who may have stopped and is curious about starting again, but they feel like because they stopped, they shouldn't start again?
Yeah, I would say I go back to that resiliency piece, right? And remind yourself how strong you are and your ability to bounce back. And although you may have stopped in, doesn't mean you can't start over, right? And there's more resources. There's a ton of resources out there. So whatever that looks like is figuring out what that looks. It's just a Google search away. You never know what you'll find. There's no better day than today than the start. Because then think about it too. Let's say you don't. Let's say you just stay where you are. What changes?
Don't nothing change. But maybe your disappointment.
But if you want change, right, all you gotta do is take the step and have that faith.
And you may fall, but you may fall forward. I've fallen forward quite a bit of times. Did not think I was going to fall forward, but I ended up doing it anyway. So if schools and agencies changed one thing, what could they do differently to help support youth aging out of the system in addition to working with case managers?
I feel like there's two different answers. I'll start with university. If there it could be more campus-based programs, so like a foster care specific program, so that foster care alumni can come together, right? And again, build a community. There are some universities out there that have that different on-campus services that target foster care alumni, and so that is a gem I think that could help.
In your dissertation, you highlight other programs throughout the country that also do a good job at that. Can you kind of go into more details about that?
Yeah, so Texas has a great program for foster care alumni and kind of help with the transition plan, and universities like University of Texas. California has great resources for foster care alumni, as well as on-campus program they called it's like a Guardian Scholars program that also helps in graduate education, right? USC, Ohio has some programs as well. Maryland has one school that has a foster care program as well for on-campus housing. And I think it would be beautiful if there's a way for all these campuses to come together and can show other universities of how to start that on their campus. Because again, it's an invisible population, but I bet if you start it, you may be surprised by how many alumni that could utilize that resource.
Yeah, I didn't even know about Texas or any of those programs. That's news to me even today. And so that is very interesting. And I'll definitely make sure to share more information about those programs below. But you mentioned Texas having why do you think Texas has the best program?
Well, I think Texas and California, I think they both have really great resources for alumni, because they both have an understanding that there is support needed beyond 21. And so they found a way to have the research, have the statistics backed up by it, and have on-campus support that helps as well. Again, providing ways to exposure for education because it's so important. So figuring out not only sharing this voucher, exposure. You don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes a foster youth may not feel they're college worthy because they've never been on a college campus.
Yeah.
Right? Or they can't see going to a trade school program because they haven't been there. So it's figuring out how do we put them in the rooms so they can see themselves in that.
Yeah.
I think that's a way that could be helpful.
Yeah. So if you are somebody who supports the foster care system, isn't specifically foster care alumni, I think the biggest thing that Dr. Martinez mentioned is having community. And so help that youth find that community, because once they have it, they can go wherever they want to go and they can achieve whatever they want to achieve, but they may not know where to start. And that's where you come in. So.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They say clock that T.
So you're not just a doctor and you're not just a social worker. You're also the founder of a new nonprofit, Foster Care Connect Foundation Incorporated. So do you want to share with listeners more about that?
Yeah. So Foster Care Connect, also short for FCCF, is a nonprofit that has always been a dream of mine. It actually came in a dream, which is funny. But the goal of that nonprofit is to help provide resources to youth in care as well as alumni. So some of the things in the community that I like to do is different initiatives. So I do work with other different organizations to do a toy and luggage drive for foster youth. And so during the holiday season, and if you're familiar, that holidays could be really rough if you're in the system, depending on how you got there. And so we want to provide different holiday items, but as well as an essential of a suitcase. And if you're not familiar with that, sometimes foster youth may go different homes with their items in trash bags. And so the toy and luggage drive is to help get away from that and to give them some dignity and a sense of worth and to have their own suitcase. I think it's really important. So that's one of the initiatives. Some other things we're building on is maybe a back to school resources, as well as figure out how to support alumni in college. And so the long-term goal is to be a scholarship fund. Again, my dissertation is to help address the gap in child welfare and what alumni's needs are. And as you mentioned, the biggest barrier is finances, right? And so my long-term goal is to be a scholarship fund, foster alumni who want to get a master's, right? And specifically help meet that need so that could help fund their education. So we're still building. It's not launched yet, but stay tuned and follow our Instagram and website. And when that application is ready for people to apply, you can submit.
Yes, and I will be adding more information down below for Dr. Martinez's nonprofit. So to wrap things up, is there anything else you want to share with listeners?
Yeah, so stay tuned for Foster Care Connect. We may have upcoming events community. We are based in Maryland, and so we have events throughout the DMV. And so August 16th, we're having a back to school brunch. So people can enjoy some good food at La Vie, but also there's a purpose, right? Brunch with a purpose. So people can donate resources for foster care youth for school. So we're hoping to support elementary, middle, high school, but we could use your help in donating the resources. So you can just look on our Instagram at FCCF25 and you can find out how to support us.
Great. I will definitely share more information about that, guys. We're going to get a lot of information today, okay? So thank you so much, Dr. Martinez, for coming on Fostering the People podcast. We've definitely enjoyed having you. For listeners, please stay tuned for more episodes of Fostering the People podcast. We release episodes every Monday on all podcast platforms, and also follow us on social media at Fostering the People podcast. Thank you, and see you next week.
The biggest thing they do not have is a support system. A lot of them will go back to their biological families. And because, I'm sure you've seen it in your years, Alana, as well, foster kids build up in their mind who they think their parent is. Like, oh, well, they took me from my mom and my mom is this person. But when they get there, the reality is, oh yeah, I was in foster care for a reason.